Good afternoon, everybody. Richard Rosser from B4. Welcome to B4 Live. This afternoon, we are welcoming Arjun and Anisa Kaicker live from Atlanta. Are you the guys there?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
yeah.
yes.
Good afternoon. What is it, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, halfway through the day. So how's Atlanta holding up with coronavirus, and how are you both coping?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of going through the same thing. America, England, sort of globally. We're in a slightly interesting situation in Georgia because our governor is about to start reopening stuff on Friday. So everyone's a little bit nervous at the moment. We're not sure if it's, people are not sure if it's the right time or not, if it's too early. So we sort of feel a bit like guinea pigs.
Yeah, we saw footage of some of the protests past couple of days in some of the states, which look a bit hairy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a terrible situation in New York at the moment. I mean, luckily, it's stabilizing to some extent. And the thing here, of course, is it's such a huge country. The peak is happening in different places at different times. So there'll be a kind of series of peaks. And it might last for longer in America than in other places, just because of the sheer scale.
So you see so much, right? So you see what's happening in New York. You see the protesting. You see how it starts to posture into something political. With our states, the governors have the rights to do whatever they choose. So you see all the individuation. You see all the criticism. I'm sure you see so much press from your end. And I'm so curious what people think of it, because it does look quite crazy, I'm sure. Our teams in China are very worried about us and just want to keep sending us masks. And so, it's just, everybody is just trying to figure it out. And I think US is going to, like Arjun said, we probably might be dealing with this longer than most.
Yeah, no, it's not, obviously not great. I mean, that's the understatement of the century. But well, we wish you and your teams well, because obviously, Anisa, you were saying off camera, you're responsible for 600. So it's a big weight on your shoulders, obviously.
Yes, we've been dealing with this since January, when it was first in China. So with our organization, which is fully integrated, the supply chain side was hit first. And I don't know, all of us, I guess, were very naive that we were going to be dealing with it too. So I don't think I understood what my team was going through, being quarantined. And for us to resume, to go back to work, and everything that we had to do was such a big deal. And then how it slowly moved to this direction where, London, then New York, and now California, and now Atlanta. So we've been dealing with this since the end of Chinese New Year, which was early mid-January.
Yeah. Well, we've got a number of questions that we've had sent to us in advance. If anybody would like to ask a question, we'll try and get round to you. But we've got about 40 minutes with Arjun and Anisa, so we'll get as much in as we possibly can. So, question for you initially, Anisa. I read an interview that you did with Forbes back in December, in which you talked about growing up working for your mother in her hugely successful import-export business, and how this taught you, watching her from the age of 12, to develop resilience. Your mother's resilience was tested to the max. I understand when the Gulf War effectively stopped her business in its tracks. How well has that resilience and the halting of your mother's business enabled you to cope with the current situation?
It's been very, very interesting. I feel like I've been reliving a bit of a traumatic situation. I was in my mid-20s when it happened in our family business, and it was totally devastating. So at one point we're doing really, really well. And then in a moment in time, pretty much like what happened to us, everything just stopped, and where you have no control and you have no visibility. And so what I think it did for me is set it up that I understood the tentative natures of businesses, that I understood to be highly leveraged isn't going to be smart, where I understood that you must have reserve, because there is going to be that moment in time where you have no control. So I understood this can happen. Now, I've always worked my business that way, which has not been maybe great. Maybe I haven't grown to the level I could have. Maybe I haven't taken certain risks. But when this happened, the initial knee-jerk reaction I felt more stable. I felt like, okay, we have a good foundation. We can wear, this storm, but the storm has been much longer than I expected. And the panic from a pandemic has really started to infiltrate me in my thought process. Like, most people I know are letting their people off. Most people I know are asking them to have pay cuts. And then I'm questioning myself because I'm not doing that. It's because I have planned that, could we weather this for a period of time? But then, is it good economic sense for the health of my business? So it helped me prepare. I'm 53, so this has been a long journey since I started my business at 28. However, I still think you cannot I think we cannot prepare for the emotional impact. And it has been very emotionally, stressful. It has been very difficult to weather, like every decision. Is it the right decision? Am I doing the right things? Nothing is normal right now.
And it's such a rapidly changing picture all the time as well. So it's today's correct decision is tomorrow's mistake, isn't it, really?
But I do have I care for my people because I don't want to devastate them. They have families, they have lives. I feel like I want to be able to sleep at night still. And I want to, no matter what happens, I don't want to feel like I've done something to these people have really invested in my organization. So there's that aspect to it. I don't take it lightly if we have to do something. I do not want to have to cut their pay if I don't have to. So, but there are things we would have to look at. The China government has been supportive. The economic stimulus here in U.S., there has been some of that. But still, if we keep going, like, I don't know what the decisions I'm going to have to make.
And Arjun, when we were talking last week, exchanging emails ahead of today's talk, you were telling me about your investigations into the design implications of coronavirus, most particularly in workplace design, and recently interviewed by The Guardian on this particular subject. And I wondered if you'd drawn any early conclusions on our working habits of the future. More working from home? Will we crave face-to-face meetings, or a bit of both?
So I think this is a real opportunity for people to understand how they work best and how people in their team work best and how their teams work best together and how they work with their clients best. And so for some people, working from home has been fantastic. It's been an opportunity to sit down and concentrate. For a lot of people, the office is a very distracting environment, and they just can't get heads down work done, especially in open plan. For others, though, it provides the stimulus they crave, and also some people are really good with online collaboration. Some of these Zoom meetings are fantastic. Some teams work really well through it. Other teams, not so much at all. And I think maybe one opportunity is, rather than just having a performance appraisal, I think now when people start to go back into the office, it might be an opportunity to have a work style appraisal with people, to be able to say to them, maybe their manager says to them, hey, so how was that experience for you? What was good and bad about working from home? And how well did you work with people? And then look at really if there's a better way for people to work together. And it might mean that offices change.
Because obviously, I mean, before all this happened, allowing teams to work from home, it was maybe a big trust issue, wasn't it? Could we get the same level of productivity out of our teams, allowing teams to work from home? And that's been sort of forced upon many of us. We've always allowed our team to work from home, and it's worked very well. But for many, it's a brand new experience. But as you say, some people might like it, be more productive. So why wouldn't we let them continue? So underlining your bit of both, I suppose. And Anisa, you've clearly built a successful global business built on, aside from a lot of blood, sweat and tears, a reliable supply chain. What advice would you give to anyone in business now or looking to start a business that would need to rely on a supply chain like you have during a period of turmoil? Would you hold off? Or would you say that this is actually a good time for opportunity?
Again, I think it's going to be very specific to what is the opportunity, what country, what products. like we all know right now, when it comes to sanitizers, if you could make them, go for it. P&G has just posted how well they're doing. A lot of our partners, the cosmetic industry, they were able to shift very quickly and produce. If you need to make something in Italy right now, we know that's a big problem. I mean, you can't get anything out of Italy right now. It's going to be a bit of an issue. I mean, if we looked at how China responded to this and the regions and how they were able, our facility in particular, they did a phenomenal job, and they're continuing to do so with the protocols and safety and sterilizations. And so it just is going to depend. I do think, it was interesting, some of the fulfillment facilities, when you look at e-com businesses, if they were in California, a lot of the facilities shut down. So people couldn't even get the digital, business they had to ship. So that, I mean, I think there's so many learnings, what worked, what did not work. And I think we need to really assess that supply chain and where the issues were, where the blockages were. And we need to now think for the future if that were to happen again.
And back to you, Arjun, in terms of design and the influence that coronavirus has on how you as an architect design going forward. Will offices be built for lighter touch use as we combine working from home with going into an office? And will an office, I think you used in your article, need to be healthier?
Absolutely. I mean, for the last few years, architects have been talking more and more about health and wellness in the workplace and understanding how that can have an impact upon morale, it can have an impact on business performance. If we think every year how many people go off sick from work due to the flu, just the common flu. And if there are ways in the workplace that we can mitigate that we can limit that happening. And I think all those things that have started to happen are just going to be accelerated so much more now after COVID. It's going to come really front and center in people's minds and not be a sort of a nice to have, an additional aspect of the workplace, but an essential part of a workplace. And that can be things like the mechanical systems, having better air filtration. It could be having more openable windows. It could also be physical aspects as well. I think we're going to see wider corridors. We're going to see bigger desks again. Desks have got smaller and smaller over the last few years, and people's personal space has reduced and reduced. It's people's typically in an office now, people's personal space is about half what it was 25 years ago. And I think that people's personal space is going to get bigger now. But what that's going to mean is you either need bigger offices or you need some people working from home part of a week to allow people to fit in the same space. There's also going to be a number of detailed aspects. Yeah, that's our little doggy Belle. And this, in my hand, is our little doggy Bo.
Working from home.
Working from home.
At least they're not children that are, right on.
Got all four of us working from home.
Exactly.
Oh, bless you.
So I think there's going to be also some physical design elements as well, like lift lobbies. No one wants to be crammed into a lift lobby. So when people are building new buildings, they're going to be designing larger lift lobbies or even maybe no lift lobbies. And the lifts themselves, having these automated systems that will only allow a certain amount of people into a lift. But then there are some really big knock-on effects of this. If tall buildings need much more lifts in them, and lifts are really expensive, they start to become less economically viable for developers. So maybe we're actually going to find less really tall skyscrapers, office skyscrapers, or even residential skyscrapers. And maybe there'll be less people who are going to want to live 60 floors up without a balcony or without an outside space and having to go into an elevator with lift with all these other people. So I don't know who that is. Someone's.
It's not DHL, is it?
I don't know what that. Sorry, my phone was on mute, but my computer seemed to still be.
No, don't worry. No, it happens. No, interesting. So quite a shift then. And so I mean, if you worked on Apple and Bloomberg, I think their buildings, and And if you, what would be one of the major things that you wouldn't do now if you were going back in time with this current pandemic in mind?
Wouldn't do now. Well, if we were designing the building for Bloomberg now, we would probably be assessing the density of the space, because Bloomberg's all open plan. So one of the big ideas there was really to have people in close proximity to each other so they could collaborate as quickly and easily together. And we would probably be looking at options for having less dense space, having less people in one area together. I think another thing we'd be looking at would be more video conference rooms and having even better technology in them, because video conferences are going to become so much more used. In the past, they were, if you couldn't have a physical face-to-face meeting, you would resort to a video conference. But now I think they might be the meeting form of choice a lot of the time. Mm. And what we're starting to realize with video conferences is that it's not just the video, it's the audio as well. So having rooms which acoustically are good for video conferences as well. I mean, just last week, there was a big presentation that I was part of to a client, and it was over in China. And typically we would have had 3 engineers and consultants going out, maybe 3 architects, 6 people going all the way to China for this meeting with, you know, maybe models and boards and everything, architectural models, etc. And doing that over Zoom, that would have saved everyone not just so much time, but so much money as well. Mm. And environmentally, so much less impact. So I think that's going to be something that is going to change. Certainly, definitely.
And, you know, it's great to see the Bell and Bow, did you say it was? That show that, yeah. How does it work? You both working at home, obviously fairly stressful jobs. Do you both bounce off each other, or is there a strict no work policy at home?
Well, yes.
Difficult at the moment, obviously, to not work. I meant even to discuss work.
Yes, I think it is difficult. I think, you know, timing, people have different timing. Like, I am more of a morning person. I like to wake up. I like to get it done in the morning. Arjun starts to kick in around like 4 or 5 o'clock. So when I'm like coming, you know, like I'm done, he's like, oh, can we have a conversation about something? I'm like, wait a minute, it's 8 o'clock. I'm done. I'm watching Netflix. No, I think we have, and I'm, you know, working on Sundays, and Arjun's like, why are you even looking at me or talking to me about anything? So I think rhythms for people, you know, partners always are, you know, is that adjustment. So we are doing our best all the time to align and with each other's, you know, energy and needs, and when we're the best. But it's tough, you know, we're 12 years together now.
Absolutely.
And 5 years or so in Atlanta, where we left London and really made Atlanta our home. And it's always a work in progress. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Are you going to have a say on that, Arjun, or are you just going to agree?
No, I agree entirely with everything.
We have a question which maybe either of you would like to answer. Given Asia has lived with various flu outbreaks over the years and their populace is used to masks, etc., have they introduced anything over the years to mitigate flu spread? Will we really learn from this, or just go back to our old ways? You
mean in China or globally?
Globally, I think. John, yeah. Whether you want to come in on that particular point, whether that's something that you wanted to ask direct.
I'm sorry?
Let's go with globally.
Okay, so I think, you know, what is interesting that we do have a flu vaccine now, and that people really will take their flu jabs. And here in the US, you can go to the local drugstore to get a flu jab. I think vaccines might be taken more serious now. I do, you know, even with my traveling to China, I started to do the pneumonia vaccine, because when I was traveling there as much as I was coming back with those kinds of things. So I do think preventative is going to be definitely something on everybody's radar now. And it might be mandated, you know, for certain countries that you go to, like it is mandated now to have certain shots before you go to certain places. So I do think that could be a regulation.
It isn't. I was listening to BBC Radio today. In Germany, it's mandatory now to wear a mask. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, and New York is going to be mandatory for a while. And it is common courtesy also to do that here in Atlanta if you go into some places.
Mm.
Yeah, I was reading that 49% of adult Americans last year took the flu jab. So I would be incredibly surprised if it was that low next year. So that's something that's very good that could come of this. I think people will be taking their health more seriously in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
Sorry, Karen, Anisa.
Well, even in some of the stores here, how they've started to put up plexiglass, how they've started to create some distancing. Is it proper that we would always wear gloves now in a grocery, or that the people who are attending to the food, should they be wearing gloves? Should they always be wearing masks? So people who are serving us that are around, our food service. I mean, I do think these are things to think about. I mean, I really, really do. Like and to me, that's not social distancing. It's about our hygiene now. Yep. It's in question what is real hygiene.
Well, thank you for that. And John's second part of his question has just come through after we've asked you to answer that particular part, saying he was really talking about building design specific on that particular note. But I don't know if you've got anything to add from what both of you have just said to that.
Yeah, so building design specific, apart from some of the things I was mentioning before, I think we'll be looking at much more contactless spaces. We're at the moment, we've just finished a building in the Middle East, which has a lot of AI and a lot of artificial intelligence. And it gives people the ability to go straight from their car to their workplace without basically touching anything. They walk in the building, and through facial recognition, it can see that they work there. So they don't have to swipe any card or touch anything at that point. When they get to the lift, it knows which floor they're going to go to. It takes them directly to the floor. If they're a visitor, it can do the same kind of thing as well. So I think that's also the same system. They from their phone, they can order a coffee. So when they arrive at the little kitchenette, but a coffee's already ready for them. It just stops people touching shared surfaces. And we've already seen that a lot in just toilets, that rather than having the tap that you turn, you have the automatic thing that you put your hand under with sensors. So I think we're going to see that a lot more automatic doors. I think it's going to be the real death of the door handle in office buildings. I think temporarily we can do a lot of stuff when we start to migrate back to the office. I think just with doors, for instance, we can prop meeting room doors open, or people's office doors, or even between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning, prop the entrance door to the building open. Just little things like that that can start to help us to ease back into the workplace.
Might be death of door handles, but certainly a lot more arrows on the floor, I think, like we're getting in shops and showing us which way to go to avoid other people. I never people have the wrong way in a shop, be so horrified about meeting somebody else. But
people have talked about that in the workplace as well. Having
that's what I'm saying. It probably will. But
everyone has to walk clockwise around the workplace. I always get my clockwise and anti-clockwise confused. So it's going to be.
You're knackered, Arjun.
Yeah.
You need a very big mask, obviously.
Yeah.
So just in terms of the high street, what are your hopes and fears generally for retail in the future? Do you see the current experience in some way, because we'll want to crave human interaction potentially when we come out of this, being boosted, or do you see it accelerating its what we're already seeing as a demise of the high street?
Well, we see that China is picking back up. So the reports from LVMH is that their stores are full. There's a big demand for the retail back in Asia. I think we're going to see a bit of a rubber band effect. Again, I think people are dreaming of places to travel. I think people are dreaming of places to go other than their home. So I think we would see a resurgence eventually. That's my thought.
Mm. And absolutely, just like with the workplace, that some people are going to think with retail, wow, I never had, I didn't have home delivery much before, but it's so convenient and it's fantastic. I love it. And they won't go back to retail so much, but other people, it'll be, as Anisa's saying, it'll be the opposite of that. They'll say, wow, I really missed going to the supermarket. And I really like being able to look on shelves to see what I want rather than having to pick it off a list. And also, I think, and this is a trend that was already happening before, but might accelerate, is retail becoming much more experiential. Mm. So the kind of buying toilet paper and kitchen roll is never really a very experiential experience. So that might go to being much more online. But really to be able to...
I don't know, getting toilet rolls in the past couple of months has been quite...
yeah, it's been an impossible thing. But to be able to go in and talk to shop assistants about stuff, to be able to understand what works well and badly, and have a fun experience when you're in a shop. So it's not just buying; it's a whole kind of day out. I think that is going to probably happen more and more, and I think retailers are just going to be forced to do that more and more. They're going to be trying harder and harder to find ways of getting people to come to their stores. Shopping centres putting on more events, for instance. Yeah, in
a responsible way. And Anisa, you had I know you seem like you're beating yourself up a bit about not maybe taking some risks and planning for, not, you weren't necessarily planning for this, but previous experiences that you've had in your life taught you that something like this could happen, not necessarily coronavirus or something that could put a stop on business. What would if you had to sum up 3 key business beliefs that have held you in good stead in your career, what would they be?
I do. I think diversification is very important. Customer concentration. Because when I saw what happened to my family's business, we were very concentrated. And I think having all categories. So with us, it would be a luxury, prestige, masstige, and mass. So we need to be diversified. I do believe that it is necessary to have a good banking partner. Like whether you have good reserve, whether, you have to have good partners, your accountants, your lawyers, your banking advisors. They helped me through this process. There was someone to talk to. We came together. Actually, my bank was calling me in January because he wanted to understand my experience in China. So how he could then support the industry here in Atlanta. So that built a very good rapport. So when it hit the US, he was able to support me. So I think that is very necessary, having the right advisors during these kinds of critical times. And then, as I mentioned, creating a reserve, because not to be judgmental or critical, but to notice that a business cannot survive for 1 month is concerning. So creating a business when you have employees that depend on you and have families, it is necessary, I think, to ensure you have some type of reserve, whether it's a month or 2 months or 3 months. So if you have to let them go, at least you can give them something so they can try to have a cushion to figure it out. To me, that's just the right thing to do for me, because when it happened with my family's business, pretty much my mother's like, sorry, I can't help you anymore. I'm like, okay, thanks. What am I supposed to do now? So it was tough lessons. That was 1.5 years. I had to go through that at a very young age.
Well, I'm sure we'd all like your number of your banker. Sounds like a very decent chap. Few and far between. I hope there aren't any bankers on the call. You obviously had a great experience at Foster & Partners. What advice would you give to an aspiring young architect in sort of setting out in his or her architectural career?
Yeah, for me, what worked well was that I specialized pretty early on. I'm not saying this is good for everyone, but I think being able to stand out there are so many young architects out there. And if you have a particular passion for something within architecture and you follow that and you get good at that, then you're going to be more in demand. So for me, I never thought that I'd get a job at a place like Foster & Partners. I never thought I'd be good enough. Norman Foster was my hero, and probably the reason he was the reason I became an architect. But I became really fascinated by office design, and I started to work within that field for small companies. But then through networking, etc., I would just tell everyone I knew how interested I was in office design. And someone who I ended up working briefly with then worked for Foster's and told his boss, hey, there's this guy out there who's really, really passionate about office design. And then when a particular office project came up and they needed it resourced, they thought of me and gave me a call. And I never would have got a job, I don't think, at Foster's with just as a kind of general architect. I just wasn't good enough. But in that one particular field, I was good enough. So, and I think now one of the areas which is absolutely amazing in architecture is artificial intelligence. Both artificial intelligence within the built environment and how it changes that, but also artificial intelligence in the design process. And so that's something I'm now kind of specializing in. And I'm seeing a lot of young architects now specializing a lot more in that. And they are in huge demand at the moment. Architects who can code and script as well as design. That's the sort of double threat. Yeah.
Excellent. And obviously, Arjun, you grew up here in Oxfordshire, and Anisa, I know you've been here a few times now. We've got a housing crisis, a lot of places do, and a dwindling amount of land to build new residential properties on. As our working habits change, do you see potentially underutilized office stock being converted to residential use? As, for example, you see in places like New York with old warehouses being converted into apartments.
Absolutely. And I think that buildings in the past, buildings from sort of 100 years ago, warehouse buildings were so much better at being remodeled into offices or into to residential, because they were just so much more flexible in the way they were built. And I think that in the last few years, some of that flexibility has really come out of buildings. And I think we now need to build office buildings in the thought that they might, in 20, 50 years' time, be converted to residential or be converted to something we don't even know, a type of building that doesn't even exist at the moment. But there are a lot of office buildings out there that have got high ceilings and lots of glass that would be fantastic to convert into residential. And it might be with working from home that there will be a more opportunity to do that, because maybe people will be using offices a little bit less.
Anisa, of your 600 staff, I would imagine the age profile is fairly broad. I don't know. One question that we've had is, how do you think the current pandemic should change the way we prepare young people? We can now see the world is interconnected, but we still prepare them in classrooms of close proximity and in face-to-face settings. What skills would you suggest young people acquire for our post-pandemic world?
It's such a good question, because what is
that
going
wasn't
on?
Mine. I hasten to add that was is it Susie? I think. Yeah. Thank you, Susie.
No, it's a really, really thoughtful question. It's a smart question. I don't know yet. I think that this has been very interesting to me, their response, their fear to get it, their fear to give it, their willingness to adhere to these these stay-at-home orders. I've been fascinated that they haven't been resisting this. And I don't know how we prepare each other for this. I don't know how to prepare them. I don't know. I'm having trouble leading them through this. Like, for us to go back to work, I know they're scared. And I cannot change that for them. It is, again, this subsiding, like we're going to have to take a toe, out the door and see the fear that is going to be present for them. I don't know what to do yet. So again, I think it's a very good question. It's things I'm thinking about. And I think there's going to be criticisms in how we do it. And we won't know till maybe 6 months to a year from now what we should or should not do to prepare. But they're already a very highly anxious, group of people. My niece, who's 20, from people that are 27 to early 30s, they're so anxious about so much. And I don't know why. So everything I wish they would stop looking at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and the news 24/7. I think they should look at it in the morning, maybe one time in the afternoon, and then maybe in the evening, at least when they're at work. Because I think the onslaught of information, they don't know how to take it in, and they don't know how to process it. It's just a deluge onto them, which emotionally impacts them and their nervous system. So I see that a lot with my people.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. It was a great question.
Yeah.
Geeta, we've got a question for Arjun. We're just about to close to wrapping up, so maybe make it the last question. Better physical space in buildings and thinking about staff well-being and sensory needs will benefit many, especially those with neurological conditions like autism, ADHD. How can we ensure the voices of these people are heard in future design?
Well, I think that's such a great question. I think that it is so important for architects and designers when they are designing a building at the beginning of a design process to not just talk to the client, the person who commissions them, but to talk to the users of the building, to users of the workplace, to hold workshops, to do questionnaires, to do interviews, and to do that with the broadest range of people, so that the most diverse range of needs are accommodated within that. And that is, of course, imperative within that is people with particular physical or mental requirements. And it has been shown as well in the workplace that having people with I can't remember what the expression is, but people who have different neurological patterns, including
Neurodiverse, I think.
That's it. Neurodiverse is really.
Thank you, Geeta. I won't take credit for that one.
Yeah, well, fantastic. Thank you. I'd forgotten.
That was Geeta. Thank you, Geeta.
Thank you, Geeta. That really helps in terms of the overall performance productivity of businesses, in terms of their ability to innovate effectively, because they have that diversity of the way people think. And so it really has to be celebrated through the design of a building. It has to be supported and it has to be celebrated. And I think, again, the problem in the past was, how is there enough time for the designer to talk to all these people in a fast design process? And I now think that with technology and with artificial intelligence, we can do that so much more effectively. It gives us the ability to talk to more people about their needs in the workplace and therefore create better solutions.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, Anisa and Arjun, I really appreciate your time, and Arjun especially for disrupting your normal working patterns, for joining us so early in the day.
Absolutely.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. But lovely to see you both. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed the conversation, and good luck to both of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. It's great talking.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.